Hello there, Scrimshaw enthusiast. Jim Adams here. This video, I'm going to outline some of the tools and materials that I use to create my Scrimshaw. This by no means, way, shape, or form is telling you how you should Scrimshaw. This is just me showing you what I use to create my Scrimshaw. So, if any of you want to try to emulate the same style I work in, this will give you a good chance at it. First tool I want to talk about is this one, Scribe. And this is a tool that you use to poke or scratch holes into the material, as you'll fill with ink later, to Scrimshaw. Now the point on this particular Scribe is carbide, harder material, which once it's sharp, and it is sharp, it'll stay sharp for a good long while depending on the hardness of the material that you're working. The Scribe I modified just slightly by putting these silicone grips on, and if I pull one off you'll see the Scribe's just a double-ended Scribe, nothing in the other end. And this is for comfortability for me. The silicone rubber helps to reduce vibration going through your hand and your arm as you're working, and hand stippling, you get a lot of that. So it helps with fatigue for me quite a bit. And this little piece right here is off of another type of tattoo tube called a rat grip, and I just put it on there because it's comfortable to hold in my hand. It helps it to rest a little bit, helps me to grip it, doesn't fall. When I'm working, I also will use a glove that has textured fingers on it, so I'll be able to grip this without putting it in the death grip, which also reduces wear and tear and strain on your hands. This particular tool is available through this company if you want to check them out, and they have different types of tips that you can get for it too, different grinds on them, so you can try them out and see which ones will work best for you. But I would highly recommend that you get a good Scribe, or you could even make one of your own if you'd like. You just have to keep in mind that the point of this thing has to be sharp, and it has to be harder than the material you're trying to scribe. Magnification is going to be the next thing. These are a pair of magnification glasses from a company called Telesight. And I have a strap on them that doesn't come with them, and these just help them to keep them from falling off my head as I'm looking down when I'm working. And the reason I like these instead of an Optivisor is that they have this little gap right here at the top. And this gap allows me to see over the top of them while I'm working. I use my monitor and put my reference up as I'm working, so I can look up through that gap and see my reference, and then look back down through the magnification to see what I'm working on. Now the strength of magnification that you're going to need is going to vary depending on the size of the image that you're working on. Tiny stuff will probably require a pretty high magnification. And also how well you can see to start with. So you're just going to have to try a few different types out, a few different strengths out, and see which one works best for you. I actually have a little stronger pair than this that I use when I work on really tiny small stuff to help me see a little easier. Keep in mind that the one bad thing about getting a strength that's really strong is that it's going to decrease the distance that you have to work. So in other words, you're going to have to get closer. You're going to have to either move your head closer to the material or the material closer to your head as you're working to be able to see what you're doing. So a good pair or a useful pair of magnification glasses is also going to be required to be quite helpful for you. Next thing I'll talk about is pigment. This is the pigment that I use to color my Scrimshaw with. I primarily work in black and gray, and this particular brand of Speedball Super Black India ink is what I like to use. Now this bottle I've used for about 4 years now, and it's only about that far down. So this one bottle of India ink will last a real long time. And it's not all that expensive. You can find it on sale every once in a while. I believe this one was around $8 on Amazon when I bought it. This is what I put the ink in, just a smaller bottle. Could be any bottle you want. And I have a little contact lens case here that I fill with water that I use to rinse my brush out in between inking. So I'll dip the brush in there, ink it, and then rinse it out with that. And wipe it out on a paper towel till it's nice and dry. That way that ink doesn't get all stuck inside the brush. And the brushes aren't real important. I mean, some people even use Q-tips. I've used Q-tips before, whatever you'd like to use to apply the ink. These are the brushes that I use, and they look all kinds of gnarly right now because they have ink all over them. Another thing that I like to use is some gloves. Regular old latex gloves or nitrile gloves. Those are actually nitrile. And I use this glove on my working hand. This is that textured black rubber glove that I use. It helps me to hold on to that scribe without having to put the death grip on it. And using this along with that rubber silicone, it grips it pretty good. So you don't really have to hold on to it and tire out your hands so much. Ease up on it a little bit. The reason I like to use these is acid and oils from your hand can stain some materials, and I like to try to keep this material as clean and pristine as I can while I'm working. Another thing that I use, pretty simple little thing, it's just a piece of paper. This regular old piece of printer paper, and it's all folded up. I'll unfold it, let you see it. And basically I just fold this thing up. Here's another one. And then I'll crease it over, and I'll use the edge right here, the hard edge, the folded edge, to rub out or rub off the ink after I ink the piece and it dries, to remove all the excess ink off and reveal exactly what I've done. And once you use one side, you can fold it over and fold it back out again and use the other side if you want. So it's pretty cheap and easy. Another thing that you're going to need is something to hold your Scrimshaw in place. And here's my solution for that. It's a ball vise, and it's the actual low profile ball vise from GRS. And it helps to hold the material, and you can move it all around wherever you want to position your material where you need it while you're working on it. Another thing that helps is this positioning plate. This little plate that's on the top kind of looks like a brake rotor almost, and it just kind of clamps in place in the jaws. And along with that, I use this Sculpey clay, kind of polymer clay, to hold everything in place. So this clay doesn't contaminate any material that I have sitting underneath or sitting on top of it. I'll put this piece of plastic, and it's just a cut out plastic Ziploc bag that I'll put over the top of it and tape it down in place. This clay does interact, or does react, I should say, with some types of plastics. And even though this is ivory, I don't want to have any of this material chemicals leaching into that ivory at all. So that's just my solution to help keep everything nice and tidy. Another thing you're going to need is some type of light. And the light that I have that you can see shining down on my hand right now is just a little LED light. It's a full spectrum light. And I can change it, I can adjust it, up or down, bright or dark, make it more yellow, make it more blue. And when I work, I like to work in a dark room. That way I only have one source of light that I can put exactly where I need it to see what I'm doing when I'm working off the reflection on this piece. Now keep in mind, this India ink isn't the only pigment that you can use to color your Scrimshaw with. It's just what I prefer. Some other people prefer to use oil paints or acrylics, but anything that will color your material and stay inside those little holes will be just fine to use. Keep in mind, you don't want to use any type of pigment that's going to fall out, shrink up, fall out of your little holes after you poke them. So try to use something that's tried and true. I would suggest either India ink or oil paint to start off with anyway. Now there's lots of other options that you can choose to use to hold down your material. Some people like to use carpet tape, tape things down. Some people like to use sandbags. I mean, basically whatever works for you to hold your material down while you're working. The reason I like the ball vise and that positioning plate is it holds things exactly in place. I don't have to worry about them moving when I put them where I put them. With some of the other methods that I used early on, I even held things in my hand, and it just didn't give me the precision that that ball vise allows me. So it doesn't really matter what you use, just be sure whatever you use works best for you. One thing I did not go over is what I use to create my patterns, to actually lay the patterns out on the material before I go to work, and that I'll try to cover in another video and be a little bit more complicated, be a little bit more technical. And that's a quick and easy explanation of the tools that I use to create my Scrimshaw. Tried to make this video short and to the point. If any of you have any additional questions, feel free to put them in the comments and I'll do my best to address all those. I hope some of you found this information useful. If you do try Scrimshaw, I wish you the best of luck. May the Scrim gods smile on your progress.